Assalamu alaikum, ladies. Imagine this. Your child is playing in your backyard. Suddenly, you hear a thud. You look up and they've fallen down. There is blood. They're visibly upset or perhaps crying. But instead of coming to you, they head out inside the house all by themselves, clean up their wound, apply the bandage, and come outside and resume playing. Now, isn't that a treat? Today, we are going to talk about the basic first aid skills that is suitable for preschoolers. But if your older child hasn't been exposed to first aid up to this point, then perhaps this is where they should start too. Inshallah, we will talk about number 1, attending to cuts and bruises. Number 2, calling for help. And number 3, recognizing emergencies. First, you can teach your children using these child-friendly images. Next, you can role play with them using a doll or a stuffed animal. And for calling, you can use a pretend phone. Lift any toy to your ear and pretend that's a phone. Okay, let's get to number 1, which is attending to cuts and scrapes. The first thing we should do when we get a cut or a scrape is to immediately wash it with clean water. The reason for that is to get the dirt off. Number 2 is to wipe it with an antiseptic wipe to kill any germs that might have gotten into the wound. Now, you don't always have to do this step for minor cuts and scrapes. However, if the cut is deeper or if there is bleeding, like the blood is flowing, then you should use this just to prevent any germs from entering your wound and making it worse. Teach your children that it might sting a little bit, but it is good for your wound. Now assess your cut. Is it still bleeding? And is the blood flowing? Because if the blood is barely coming out, then you don't need to do anything else. Just leave it. Allah has provided us with oxygen in the air. That does wonders for the injuries. The little amount of bleeding interacts with oxygen, creates a scab, and that is a natural plaster, natural band-aid. You don't need anything else. But if the blood is still flowing, then you need to apply some pressure, which is image number 3 on the left side. Apply pressure. Ideally, the bleeding should stop from 10 to 15 minutes. And if it doesn't stop, then you need to call an adult for help. Children might not have any idea of 10 to 15 minutes, so you can tell them, apply the pressure for a long time. And if the blood still kept flowing, then you need to call an adult for help. But if it wasn't really flowing, just 1 or 2 drops coming out, that is the perfect time to apply a plaster. Plaster shouldn't stay on for more than 24 hours. And if you still needed a plaster after 24 hours, then you need to get a new one. Kids love this part. Just to get to apply a plaster, they would invent some injuries. But we can teach them that we are not going to be wasteful. We're going to use plasters only when needed, just so we don't finish them in case there was a real need and the blood was flowing, but we didn't have any left. So we don't want to do that. We're going to keep them safe for the time when we really need them. Kids will be kids though. They will experiment some. They will put plasters where we think that they don't need it. And that's okay. Eventually, they will get to a point of using them properly, inshallah. Now, ideally, once you've taught your children how to use these items, which is antiseptic wipes, and clean cottons to put pressure on the wound, and the plasters, then you should make it available for them. So they can use it whenever they need to, without coming to you for help for every minor cut and scrape. Ladies, this will empower your children, give them the confidence that they can deal with their small cuts and scrapes by themselves. They don't need to keep running to you for help and assistance in every single thing. Next, we need to teach them how to attend to bruises, which is very simple. If you fall down and you don't find any cuts or scrapes, the scrape is like a graze on the skin. It's not really bleeding, but it can be really painful though. If the skin seems intact, however, it does really hurt, then you're likely to have a bruise. A bruise could look purple or dark colored, and it could accompany some swelling. And if you notice those changes happening to your skin, you could quickly apply some cold compress. Tell them how they can access anything cold from the freezer. If you have cold compress available, then that's ideal. But if not, then they can use any veggie bag, the wrapper. Just the idea is to cool that area down so it doesn't swell up more and to ease the discomfort. Next is how to recognize emergencies. Ladies, children 4 or 5 years can do it easily, which is to recognize emergencies. You can teach them several scenarios. For example, you can teach them about choking, and the signs of choking is that the person is struggling to breathe, pointing to their throat, gasping. That means they're choking. And the number one weapon children have at this age is their voice. So tell them to call out for help. The biggest help they can provide in emergencies is to call for help, to shout, to scream, call adults, call grown-ups, call their teachers, and they can handle the emergency themselves. Number 2 emergency is someone unconscious, not responding, fainted child in the playground, for example. And children, again, they can call for help, but also what they can do is to put that child on their side, which is the recovery position, roll them to one side, and then scream and call for help, or even run to get some help. And number 3 is, for example, if something is on fire, or they see a lot of smoke filling up a room or coming from a house, it is always a good idea to be safe rather than sorry. And also tell them if anything seems unusual, seems different, looks like something is not right. If a grown-up's face looks droopy, for example, or if an adult is not acting right, they should never be silent. They should quickly run and tell another adult, or 3 or 4 adults. That way, children will be a great help, inshallah. That is it for recognizing emergencies. And the last skill they need to learn is calling for help. If you look up on YouTube, you will find 4 years old have called the emergency services for help. And how is that possible? It is only possible if we equip them. Yes, we need to keep our devices locked up so they don't use it for screen time. However, it's a good idea to have a basic phone available for them for emergencies. Or if you're home alone with your children and your oldest is only 4 or 5, it's a good idea to have the lock removed until your husband comes back or until you're not that alone. La samahallah, nobody knows when an emergency is going to arise. And we pray that it never does. However, just in case it does, our children should be prepared for that. And for this, you can role play and teach your children when they're calling for help to call the number 999 or 911 or whatever the number may be for your local emergencies. And once they call for help, that an adult is going to speak to them. But it's okay, they're there to help. So tell them your full name and then tell them your address. It is important that children 2 to 3 years old should be exposed to their address. However, 4+ should know their address by heart. So mention their full name and mention their address and then describe what happened. Tell them that Mama is not waking up, for example, or Baba is choking, or whatever the situation may be. May Allah keep our children protected. Ya Rabbal Alameen. You would have conquered the challenge once you have gone through some basic first aid with your children and role-played anything from these slides. And once that's done, please send done in the comments. Bismillah.